Welcome back to Utah Stories. So today on the program, we have David Ibarra, who's a longtime Salt Lake City business owner, has a building right in the middle of downtown. He's witnessed the deterioration of the city center. He's witnessed the impact that the homeless, especially the mentally ill homeless, the drug-addicted homeless, have had in the deterioration of the business community. Some people watch this program, and if they're watching a segment where we're hearing from business owners, they think we have no sympathy. Of course we have sympathy, but if they're watching it from the point of view from a homeless advocate, they think that we have no sympathy of the business owners. We see both sides. It's not an either-or situation. Business owners need to be able to run and operate their businesses, and especially the homeless population that is recently homeless, that's just trying to get off the street, homeless seniors, folks who really have a motivation to improve their life situation. They need to get off the street. Then what you have left are people who are mentally ill or who are addicts. They also need our compassion and help. The problem is you need to segregate all of these people out. You need to deal with them case by case, and we need to deal with the problem more effectively. And it seems like you already know that, Dave. Is that something?
Well, absolutely. I've look at myself, and some will say, boy, a wealthy business owner. I don't think I'm wealthy, but, I started as a dishwasher. I grew up in Utah, foster care system for 14 years. I didn't ever graduate from college, but through my foundation, I paid for 134 people to graduate from college. I get that, it used to be when we did well, and if you played by the rules and you worked hard and you paid back, you would celebrate it as a great American success story. Today, we're in such a negative place that we question that, you must be a bad guy. You must have been stepped on somebody. And it's really become a negative, which is interesting, but it is the new America.
Yeah, and to think because you're speaking out as a business owner who I heard the story, I believe, secondhand about how you were accosted. You called the cops. This guy kind of was he seemed mentally ill, but the police did not respond. Yeah. That is a pattern that keeps repeating from business to business to business.
I could tell the story, and it's interesting, without getting into Salt Lake City Police Department and its leadership, Chief Brown, who I absolutely believe is a failed leader. I happen to be we have now had to set up cameras throughout all of our areas of our building in the entrance. You can't, just walk in like you used to and welcome people. They got to buzz themselves in. We see them on a camera for the safety of the people within the building. And that isn't the way a business should be, a neighborhood should be, any place should be, not in Salt Lake City. But on one case, I got called that there was an individual that was breaking into a car, my car, and had taken some stuff and was walking out. I see him walking out, and I said, hold up, give me that stuff, drop it. And I grab him by his shoulder, and he has a knife in his right hand, begins to want to penetrate the knife into my stomach. Luckily, I did know how to handle myself from the neighborhood I grew up in. I grabbed it with my left hand, wrestled him to the ground, which wasn't too hard, and got the knife out of his hand, called 911, and held him down. And 28 minutes, no response. And what they asked us is, the knife's still in his hand? No. Well, I'm sorry, sir. Then that is no longer a priority call.
Oh, gosh.
So, but that's the new Salt Lake City. We see.
Where was he when you were making the phone call?
Well, I had him with my knee on the back of his head, holding him down, and then nobody came, and then people started coming, other homeless people, let Johnny go, and screaming at me and yelling at me, and I could see it was going to escalate into something that would be far worse than what had just occurred, because I was no longer were in harm's way, so I let him go. And then I happened to go over to a convenience store, and there was a police officer there who was off duty. Told him about it. He made some phone calls. They did come by and talk to me, but we had it all recorded on our cameras. So it's.
Wow.
But I could give you 20 stories like that, and I'm not exaggerating. That's
just
the new
involving you or your
downtown.
employees
Yes,
in your business.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a really bad situation, and we had Sim Gill on the program,
Yes.
district attorney for Salt Lake County, explaining to us why are there so many homeless criminals who are but mostly victimizing other homeless people.
Right.
Stealing their tents, stealing their sleeping bags, stabbing them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's just a lot of homeless people who are victimized, but business owners as well. And Sim Gill explained to us that if somebody is mentally incompetent to stand trial, they are not going to put them through a district court case where they're going to charge them with felonies and lock them away. So they're just going to go in and out and in and out.
It seems like our leaders, and Sim's a dear friend of mine.
Yeah, he's a good guy, really good guy.
Sim Gill was the best man at my younger brother's wedding. So, we have a connection, but regardless of that, we have a tendency to talk about all the reasons we can't do something instead of how we can do something. I like to tell people I'm a Mexican. I'm not a Mexican. You're going to find a way that we're going to get something done. And when we look at when I got involved in wanting to be the mayor of Salt Lake City 3.5 years ago, it was for 4 years to get out and never return. To fix homelessness. Now, you can help get involved in that in a lot of different ways, and being mayor was never my goal. It isn't my goal today, and heck, to be frankly, I've had better positions, stronger positions that I can make a bigger impact, but Salt Lake City's our home. So I've been working in how is it that we can get the encampments handled in such a way that our city doesn't become Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, and God forbid, Los Angeles, but we're headed that way. And it's through the policies and the political thought, the culture of Mayor Mendenhall and some other mayors in the West that has caused this to rapidly grow. And while we got to be compassionate for sure, when I went in on a tour to try to find what cities had fixed it, not talked about it, I went to San Antonio. I went to Haven for Hope. I went and saw that there was no tents. They bring them to a courtyard at the campus. They're greeted, even though they may be intoxicated, they may have some severe behavioral issues. They're welcomed with love, and they're told, well, okay, I'm sorry that you feel that way, Richard. Over here is your sleeping area. But when you're ready, I can take you through that door, detox. I can take you through that door for some health examinations or dental or job services. And 15,000 people have gone through there and gotten help.
Yeah.
And instead, we say we're being compassionate when we don't have any accountability. Or I even hear somebody saying, David Ibarra is trying to criminalize homelessness. That is just absolutely the most bizarre let's talk, comment that could be made.
Yeah, let's talk about the program you're in favor of, because currently abatements are, I think, horrific. They're inhumane. They're awful. And the especially, like we had Wendy Garvin on earlier today.
Yep.
The worst part about it is you're not telling people they have some place to go.
Yep.
You're just telling them they can't be here, and you're going to take all their stuff and throw it away. What do we do in the short term when we found out the news, the 50 pod site does not have somebody who they feel qualified to manage it. There's going to be up to 400 people, was Wendy's estimate, who are going to be unsheltered on the streets despite the winter overflow having 600 beds. What do you do with these 400 people?
Well, I'll tell you, the idea of celebrating 50 pod sanctioned shelter, I don't know, as a problem solver, and I get hired from Hawaii to Pittsburgh to go into companies and help them fix things. And to look at that and celebrate that as a solution, to me is kind of like a moment for me. Secondly, to do an abatement when it is almost picking on people, bullying people when they have nowhere to go. And that's the idea of in San Antonio and some of the other countries and cities across this world, they have a place to politely, pleasantly, comforting somebody. We're going to help move you there. To this is where there is a shower. This is where somebody's to greet you. This is where there's a bathroom facilities. And this is where there's safety. And if you're not ready to go into a resource center, well, then we were supposed to have gotten rid of a shelter, which was to house people, not solve the problem, and come up with a resource center that was going to evaluate and assist, and then to help people find their way back. Our resource centers are shelters. They're not resource centers.
And they're full of drugs and crime.
And they're full of drugs and crime, and they're expensive. It's like a shelter that is the Ritz-Carlton shelter. That's not the way we should spend money. It's become a homelessness industrial complex. People are making money on this issue, and that is a crime in itself. But this is about people. Anything that we do in business, in my view, I won't do business with somebody helping them improve until they get. There's two parts to success. There's capital and there's talent development. If you don't believe in people, you're not going to get the other half. I'm not the person that can help you. Everything is about people. If people don't have hope for a better tomorrow, we're lost.
Yeah. So I think there's a misinformed group of people who believe that you and Rocky Anderson are all about locking away the homeless,
silly,
putting them in jail,
silly,
continuing enforcing the no camping policy.
Yes.
Tell me, is that true?
Absolutely silly. When you look at criminalizing homelessness, what I believe is enforcing someone who's broken a law, no matter who the someone is. If somebody is sitting in the alley across, right next to, between me and HSC, a restaurant, shooting up heroin, and a police officer comes by and sees them shooting up heroin and tells them to stop, and then lets them wait 30 minutes until go down the street, having a lack of accountability for that lost person who may be shooting something in their veins that's going to kill them tomorrow.
Yeah.
That is a crime.
Yeah. And I have to say, I know there's a lot of people out there who say, oh, but these poor addicts, it's a disease. They're addicted. They need to go. They need to, work on their addiction.
Yes.
But I think it's more inhumane to not have a place to put people who are completely addicted. I saw a clip today from Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. It's a town. It's the square, the middle of Philadelphia, and all these people are on a new thing called Trank.
Yeah.
It's this crazy thing where it's a tranquilizer mixed with fentanyl, and they're like this. It's like everybody in this one area, and I'll show that. We'll hopefully show the video when we edit it.
A zombie drug is sweeping through America right now. Eerie footage coming out of Philadelphia shows crowds of people slouched over but still standing. The insane part is that this is a common scene in almost every major city in America. They look like they are conscious, but not at the same time. The drug they are on is called xylazine, or more commonly known as trank. It is known to place people into a zombie-like state where they are unable to move and seem to lose all awareness. People using the drug are put into a complete trance and can be seen walking around like an animal. The drug causes infections of the limbs, which most commonly result in amputations. It has been described as being so addictive that even a single accidental hit of it could get you hooked. Tranq is now in about 90% of Philadelphia's drug supply and can be commonly found in low-income areas of almost all U.S. cities. You can walk downtown right now and most likely see people like this.
But, I mean, how is that compassionate to let these people just use these drugs all day long until they're dead?
When we have an unhappiness consciousness, we're going to look for false short-term euphorias to be happy. We're not addressing the root cause. To arrest somebody is the pivot point to determine where do we go. Jail isn't going to be the answer. You know, having an opportunity to go to the Other Side Academy as opposed to jail could very well be the answer. David DeRocha, when he was facing 29 years sentenced to San Quentin, a petition to Delancey Street, and Delancey Street told him no at first. And then he petitioned again. This time when they came back the interview, he said, "Why do you want to come to Delancey Street?" And he says, "I need help." They have to say, "I need help," before they can get in. David got in 2 years later. When it's time for him to get out, he asked to stay another year. That by the end of 3 years, he was running Delancey Street, and now he's running a program similar, the Other Side Academy, that starts a credibility. When I lose my way, you know where I go? I go have dinner at the Other Side Academy. And I'm sitting around a lot of great individuals that have taken control of their lives, and that's one of the places, people tell me, everybody that's wealthy is just a rich pig that just wants to take and take and take and take. But I put my money where my mouth is, and they get a sizable check from me. It's not a secret. Me and a friend of mine gave $100,000 to them. I'm not particularly rich, but I know to give back. The Other Side Village, if you're going to be involved with criticizing, do something to solve too. I bought a house and fully equipped and donated it to the Other Side of Village. It's called Viva Listo Manor, and that's after my new book, Live Ready, Beyond Think and Grow Rich.
That's cool.
So, we're not criminalizing people, helping people.
Yeah.
But immediately we need a sanctioned encampment to not abate, but to move.
Yeah.
And protect.
Immediately we need that.
And to talk.
A place where they can all say, you go here.
Yes.
You're going to be safe. You're going to be taken
Yes.
care of. You can't be
You're
here.
gonna be safe.
And we're not going to tell you where you can go.
And you're going to be helped. But the other thing, embedded in this group, we think of cartels as being a Mexico thing. Think again. They're embedded in this group, hiding within it for the destruction of our society through the distribution of drugs, not to the homeless community, to all of our community.
I think you're right. I pointed out some really beautiful brand new Denali Yukons at the biggest homeless encampment a few months back. And I said, what is this? This looks very strange to me.
How does that happen? I used to own a condo for 20 years across from the Magnolia. It got so dangerous that I couldn't have my girlfriend walk or stay there because they're shooting up drugs right on the street. Now, I come from a neighborhood that I've seen a lot of things, and I tell you what, I don't get surprised by much, but I do in my own street that I live. But there's two cars, one at each end. And you'll see people driving up, packages being delivered. Now, if I can see it, why aren't we having a task force to stop that? Because it's the destruction of our cities, our state, and our country.
Yeah, and our human capital.
Yes, and the talent that is going to determine whether or not we're an economic power or not.
Yeah.
If our economy is broken, so are our people.
Yeah. So let me bring this idea up because here we are, end of October. We're moving into freezing temperatures maybe tomorrow.
Yeah.
There's no sanction camp. The Ramada Inn was a flop. They couldn't get that going. That developer, Keith Warburton, was given $4 million. He could never get the permits in place to actually develop that into permanent supportive housing. And we've got just 600 more beds, but we've got at least 1,000 people who need beds. So how do we solve that in the
first of all, let me tell you something. I'm an experienced business person, a problem solver. If I give somebody $4 million, and it's in escrow, so it's safe, but it's still my $4 million. So they have certain things they have to do, and I'm going to be checking that timeline along the way. But we had a mayor who didn't figure it out until she read about it in the Tribune, or her timeline says about that time. But if you look back further, she knew it wasn't going to come, but she still counted it in her bed count. And this isn't you don't run a city by statistics. You run a city by the effect you're having on human beings. And they don't fit in a statistic. Those beds aren't going to happen. And then yet we got Carol working over in Tooele in Switch Point and doing some great things. And instead of her getting embraced, she gets pushed back. Why? Because she's making the homeless industrial complex look bad.
Yeah, that's all I can figure. So I asked the mayor's office, what sort of vetting did you do of Keith Warburton to trust him with the $4 million and the Ramada that he was going to complete the project? What sort of vetting happened? Andrew Wittenberg is the communication director who got back to me. I thank him for getting back to me. Yeah. But he just linked to the city council minutes, and the city council just green-lighted it. He's a home flipper, and I guess he owned the City Inn, and which is a dilapidated motel, which was a prostitution ring before that. So I'm just like wondering, how did they trust him to do that project, and why did they not vet him? Why did they not have a timeline or timetable?
When you go
just
3.5 years without doing much for this issue, and now after 3.5 years, her and the city council have finally going to have some more discussions about what ought to be done, and then they have this collective group thought. They don't have we're all together. They are all together and should be held accountable for the problems we have. 3.5 years, we don't have anything done. And in business, I couldn't go 3.5 months because the revenue that I'm spending is revenue I had to make. The revenue they're spending is taxes. They didn't make any of that money. And they're not being held accountable, and shame on them.
Yeah, and they, in their defense, and they've said this, they feel all of the homeless are being dumped on them. Like they signed that moratorium. We're not building any more homeless shelters. They extended another 6 months. We're not going to build any more homeless shelters in Salt Lake City because they feel like all the burden's being placed on them. But the problem is, where do all the homeless people congregate? Where do they end up
They're
going?
Go to the city. The whole thing is, when problems occurs, when tragedy happens, when a crisis occurs, you don't get to choose. You don't get to say, woe is me. Woe is me. You get it done. It's what's been served up. You got to fix it because you're the leader of the 200,000 people that live in Salt Lake City. So don't come before them and explain all the reasons they should understand. You can't fix it. And the statistics say we're better than some other cities. We want somebody that comes in and says, look what we're going to do. We're innovative. We're in the top tier. We don't have tents in our cities, and we're going to help every single individual get on a better path to a good life, no matter where they start. And it doesn't matter where they're at. It just matters when they start.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of Salt Lake City we should have, and that's the kind of Salt Lake City we used to have.
Yeah.
God, I get worked up when I come on your program.
Yeah, it looks like we got some comments. Is that right, Troy? Is that the sticky you tried to put up?
Yeah. Again, Wendy Garvin, she's watching, so thanks for watching, Wendy. She says, I told Andrew Johnston July 28th that the Ramada development failing At that point, Warburton owed $30K in water bills. They'd shut off the water and the building was closed. They knew.
Yeah, Rena Rogers is actually
Yeah.
after you. She knew July
Yeah.
5th.
Yeah.
Because she was shown
Yeah.
a unit, 2 units completed out of 200. He did not have the financing. He didn't have the manpower. Nothing was in place, and that building was ready to be used. I
Well,
mean,
I'll tell you something. I don't know who's writing the scripts for the mayor in her debates, Ian, her DC consultant, or whom, but she didn't want to say it because she held those units in her count of accomplishments. Shame on her. But you know what? In business, if I'm going to go after a project, and all my life I've always been afraid of not having enough money because I started with no money, credit cards, and in my first business, borrowing money from everybody I could see to start my first business. But you know what? Anybody who gave me a loan asked me, "What collateral do you have?" What collateral did this individual have that he couldn't pay $30,000 of a water bill? The person got the deal, which was a home run deal for him if he could have put it together, but he didn't have the wherewithal or the capital to put it together. Success requires capital and talent, and it looks like he didn't have any, but either of those. But the city should have vetted him.
Yeah.
And how did he get it? Because now that project is lost forever.
well, Wittenberg says that the loan they were providing from the RDA and the grant they were providing were gap financing. So Keith Warburton never actually owned the property, and he was waiting on a construction loan.
Sure.
But my question is, so if he's waiting on a construction loan and that loan is not coming through by a certain date, why wouldn't you pull the funds from him
wouldn't
and
you
find
pull the
another
funds?
developer?
Exactly.
It doesn't make sense.
The project should have been lost. There should have been a replacement. But, I understand it, how it occurred. And again, I can understand how the mayor made this mistake. Her experience would tell you that she didn't have the experience to do that. You look at what she's done in the past, and God bless her, it wasn't this kind of work. So it's understandable that she didn't know.
So my final point to you, and I hope those who are watching, is I feel like we're in a situation, not just locally, but nationwide, where the referees, umpires, and ivory tower educated liberal elites, elites in general, not just liberals, but on both sides, they know what's best, and they're pitted against the independent small business owners, entrepreneurs who are doers and makers and builders. And one is smothering the other right now. It feels like the people who want to make the rules, want to set the rules, are smothering the small business community in Salt Lake City. We had on the program Midtown salon owner Teresa Bowman, and it's just unbelievable how they would not listen to her for a second. Yeah. And they're not listening to the entrepreneurs, the small business
Latter-day
owners.
Brides, these was one story after another. But I invested in trying to bring homelessness to the forefront of discussion, because I too, and I've never done business with the city. I've never had a request of the city. They're not my client. I would never do business with the city. I do business with small business owners, most of them new car automobile dealers that have me want to help them grow their capital and protect it. And I tell them it's through the development of their talent. But so I don't have anything in this other than I know this, that the taxes received by the city comes from entrepreneurial enterprises that are selling widgets, services, that creates a sales tax. That the city, if it's 8 cents, the city gets 1 penny of those 8 pennies. And they can build them up. If they don't make their revenue doing that, then it's property taxes. Now, this mayor and city council don't get business.
Yeah, and my question is like, so if you're operating a business and the person from the government comes in and they're basically saying, look, we're doing this because we're trying to save you and help you.
Yeah.
And they're not listening to what you actually need and want. There's this disconnect. There's this gap between what the business owners need and want and what the city is doing. Yeah. What's it going to take for city leaders to actually listen to the people they're supposed to serve? It just seems like there's this massive gap right now.
The responsibility lies on us, the voters. We have a tendency to not, understand that this is a job interview. And we should be interviewing the job to find out two things: their qualifications, which is past history that matches up with the job requirement, and their desire to make a better life for everyone living within. Mm-hmm. We're not vetting people correctly, so we have folks on the city council, not all for sure, but many that this is a big major entity with a huge budget, and it's beyond their understanding, and I get that, but the mayor's responsibility is no one has all the talent or skills to get where they want to go on their own. You have to be an expert in bringing those skills and talents to the administration and use them as if they were your own in harmony, so you can enter this thing called the genius zone and great things come out of it. We see cities all over America doing just that. You don't have to know it, but you have to know that you don't know it. I don't have that skill. I don't have that talent. In what I do, there's a lot of talent and skills I don't have. That's why vice presidents and other members of our team have those that I don't. And when we're talking about that item, I know it's time for me to follow. And there's a time to lead, and there's a time to follow. And our mayor needs to get that, or the next mayor needs to get that. You won't have all of the talent, but the conference of mayors, where you will be interacting with other mayors all across this country, you can ask who in this country has solved X, Y, Z, and then get off your tail and go visit that city, and then get somebody who's done it, not talking about doing it. We don't need another conversation. We need actions that have been done before to solve these issues. And
I think you're absolutely right. It takes humility, and the failure of the Ramada. I mean, if she just stepped up and said, my project timeline coordinator dropped the ball, or just take a leadership step in admitting that you guys dropped the ball.
Mistakes are okay.
So how do we rectify this problem? How do we solve it now? What do we do? Let's get together.
What is going to happen with that property? Do you know?
So apparently it's been sold to the Miller family. Yeah. I mean, I've heard that. I don't know how we verify that. The county recorder office.
That's what I've heard too. And is it going to turn into the project being finished?
It's still no, apparently not.
No. So the opportunity is lost, and we have somebody.
Unless the Miller family is going to donate several $1 million, refurbish it, and make it to another
Miller
overflow.
The Miller family's a great family, and they've done unbelievable things in this state. But the fact of the matter is, we talk about why we have certain people running certain projects, like the individual running this. But I question why we have some folks running places like the Magnolia apartments and what have you. And we ought to be able to have a director that is running these, that once they eliminate the need, They should be given 3 years a bonus of their pay, so they should be rewarded instead of, if the problem gets worse, the more money I get.
Yeah.
That's not a good formula for success.
So we reported on the failure of the Magnolia Project about a year ago, according to the manager of Magnolia.
Wow.
And then she said this is an utter disgrace and complete failure because everybody in there is a drug addict.
Yeah.
She told us 15 people had died in there. We just verified from the police records, just barely got this in, 8 people overdosed. Wow. And so...
And I sold my house because it was right across the...
Yeah, it deteriorated that neighborhood.
The only way I could sell it is I'm the bank. I had to carry the note.
Oh, really? Jeez. Wow. Yeah, it's just like you got to hold people accountable. That's what it all comes down to.
I feel sorry for the folks that live in that area, my area. But you know what? To look on the other side of it, we've got about 1,000, 1,500 people that are in serious need of help.
Mm-hmm.
That's fixable. It's not like 35,000 like in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
We can fix this if we'll stop talking about the ways we can't and start talking about the ways we can. We've got people in this state that have resources to help, but like me, I don't believe they'll give a dime to the city because the city has proven they do not know how to manage money.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you've articulated it clearly. I mean, I think that the city needs a leader who can come in and hire the experts,
yes,
who can solve all the individual problems and hold people accountable.
And showcase it and invite other cities to come to Salt Lake and see an example, and let's spread that to other cities because America has lost their way on this issue.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell you what, God didn't create junk. Everybody is special in some kind of way, and we got to help them find what they're special in again and get back on the road to living a happiness, consciousness life.
Well said. David, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, thanks for watching the program. We're going to be right back for our final segment with Rena Rogers, who has a really amazing nonprofit. I just spoke to her for the first time. It's Mental Health America Utah. She was in the Ramada while this Keith Warburton was trying to somehow develop that project without financing. She's going to come in and talk about that, talk about her project to provide wraparound services, mental health services, to places like Magnolia that so desperately need it. So stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in a few.
Hey, thanks.
Thank you so much for watching Utah Stories and being part of our community. I really appreciate your comments, your likes, your shares, all of that stuff. Couple announcements I need to make. November 2nd, save that date. We are having a special event at Broovy Cinema Pub where we are showing 3 awesome local independent films. One is about the homeless voices, the voices of the unsheltered. We have a film about the gondola going up Little Cottonwood Canyon, how somehow it's moving forward despite nobody wanting it. And then we have a film about a young boy overcoming a speech impediment. Those 3 films will be joined by a panel discussion about homelessness. And we have an awesome panel of guests, all the people who are part of the solution to solve homelessness and the problems associated with it in downtown Salt Lake City. I strongly encourage you to go out to our website, buy a ticket for that film premiere, or become a member of Utah Stories, and we will give you a ticket with your membership. That really helps us to support our coverage, to support our local independent journalism, and to really go out and find the truth. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.